Welcome to Hypnotic Talk with Miri and Neota. Miri and I are connected through our practices of hypnotherapy and the training that we did together. And in the years that we've been practicing, we have taken our specialties in differing areas, but we are definitely still connected in our love of all things hypnotic healing. And some of our specialties and some of our practices are overlapping and some are distinctly different. But the use of hypnosis is where we definitely are aligned and committed to one another. And today we are talking about areas in which our practices do overlap and in areas that we each treat our clients. And that is insomnia, sleep, and anxiety, and specifically sleep anxiety. Yeah. So that is such a huge problem for so many of our clients. And it presents even in other aspects. You know, somebody will come to see us about a specific issue, and sleep anxiety is blocking their life.
So let's talk quickly about what is sleep anxiety, because it's a little bit different than just anxiety or just sleep issues. Sleep anxiety is usually when we feel anxious about our sleep, about the time when we want to go to sleep. And when we don't, like, for some people, it can be that they don't want to go to their bedroom. They don't want to go to their bed because they feel anxious about doing that. And as bedtime is getting closer and closer, the anxiety is elevated more and more. And many of my clients, at least, start feeling this anxiety from around noon. Why? Because this is the first time of the day when they have a little bit of quiet time.
Oh, interesting. So as soon as they have a little bit of downtime, they start getting a little bit of subconscious sabotage about the issue that is presenting in their life. Of course, that's completely reasonable.
And then they start, like, what we are talking usually in our sessions is that they're describing it as if it's the time for them where they can reflect on what they did up to now in the day and what they still need to do. And this is when it comes up. So what they did is also related to last night's sleep, right? If they slept well and they did well, it's better. But then they start thinking, will I sleep well again tonight? Can I reproduce it?
Yeah, it becomes such a cycle. And it's like getting on a treadmill or like a hamster wheel. That's just that cycle going around and around. If I slept well, it was maybe just a one-off. Maybe I can never do it again. Maybe it was a fluke, or it was out of, maybe something extraordinary time outside that they spent, or, or the help of a medication or some sort of sleep aid. And the anxiety begins like, what if it can never? So even having a good sleep isn't enough to get out of the anxiety cycle, the sleep anxiety cycle. In fact, it can play into it.
Exactly. And then it goes stronger even more as they approach bedtime.
Yep. Yes, the anxiety it increases and increases and increases. And that's the way human brains can be cruel. The way that your own brain can be cruel to you is by getting on this cycle of anxiety and ramping it up and ramping. And the more anxiety you feel, the less likely you are to be able to achieve the sleep, the more you worry that you're not going to get the sleep. And the result that when you don't sleep well, you really don't function as well. You're not.
Yeah.
So what a great representation for our electronics to be like, not just your brain will glitch, also your electronics and your technical difficulties. And that's exactly a perfect representation of the technical difficulties that our brains can create, disrupting the sleep and creating that anxiety and freezing
Absolutely.
you, making you freeze. Like, I'm not going to sleep. This isn't going to work for me.
Absolutely. And we see it every time, all the time with our clients, right? Like, also, if we take into it the negative talk, the inner dialogue that is playing
Yeah.
a huge role in telling us whether or not we can sleep, whether or not we can do something. Usually when it comes up, it's negative.
Yep.
And then it tells us, oh, as you said before, you slept last night, but it was a fluke. It won't happen again. You can't reproduce it. You didn't sleep well last night, so yeah, for sure you're not going to sleep tonight. And this is how it, like, the anxiety increases, and
Yeah.
and you feel as if there is no hope.
It's true. And you can actually, you know, it can present as even a sense of defeat or a sense of failure, which
Yeah.
are, you know, so counterproductive to being able to get back on track. Yeah, all of that self-talk and all of that negative feeling of doom and dread and failure and defeat, people who feel so defeated, it can be a blockage to actually getting back into the healthy cycle of sleep.
And Neota, you just mentioned a sense of failure. And, you know, many people think that sleep is something that happens to us very, you know, naturally. And it does, but we need to understand it's a process. It's not like we're going into bed, we close our eyes and we are asleep. Something needs to happen prior to that. And it's a process that leads us from wakefulness to, you know, to sleep. And it's about body temperature. It's about, you know, quieting the mind, relaxing the the muscles. There are so many factors playing in this process that it's not
Yeah.
like, okay, I'll go to bed, I'll close my eyes, and why can't I do it? And
Right.
then comes the sense of failure. So I think, like, understanding the process allows us to introduce more compassion into it and say, well, it's not a sense of, yeah, it's not failure. We just need to understand what are the aspects of sleep, of falling asleep, sleeping well, and staying asleep.
Yes.
And you know, we are some of us, we are lucky. I fall asleep really quickly, and staying asleep, and I sleep well. But sometimes I need to relearn how to do it.
Yeah. And it can be situational. I am a very good sleeper. Um, However, during my second pregnancy, I suffered insomnia, and it can rapidly become such an issue in your life, and the fear of not being able to sleep, or the sense of not being able to do something properly, and it can rapidly become a cycle instead of just being a one-off. And so getting your mind on board, using a hypnotherapist, a clinical hypnotherapist, to help create the patterns in your mind, and coaching through patterns in your life, routines, because sleep is a routine. It is a routine. And even for people who sleep can't be a routine, people who, you know, work shift work or different, you know, on call, like first responders can have a really hard time. You can still create a sleep routine outside of a daytime routine. So
Exactly.
it's, yeah, and
We can
creating that
we can
plan.
set anchors, like
Set anchors.
anchoring the and because our brain is very associative, right? So
Yes.
if for someone who has anxiety, sleep anxiety, and they see their bed and it's like it feels bad, then it's a bad association. But if when we create good anchoring, good association, and when they see their bed, they know it's time for them to rest. They know it's time for them to, to relax and go to sleep. Then it's a positive anchor, it's positive association, and this is what we are creating when we are working with our clients. As you said, regardless of the time of the day, if we are working with shifts workers.
So all of those inhibitors, right? Things that will disrupt a pattern or a program, and using a state of hypnosis to go into your brain and establish patterns and programs and setting anchors independent of what is going on in your outside life. Like, you can be going through a very stressful event in your life and still achieve good sleep. Those things are possible. It's not common, like that's stress is obviously a big factor in interrupting sleep, stress and anxiety, but it can be overridden. The power of the human brain and the ability to train it and set those anchors and bypass anxiety using tips, tricks, a plan, coaching, like sleep coaching, and also the state of hypnosis. The things that we offer our clients, the ability to override and bypass the anxiety and be able to sleep.
So there is a funny story. I worked with a nurse, and as long as she was on shift, she slept very well. She learned how to sleep well while she's, while she needs it. But then when she stopped working shifts and she worked like 9 to 5 job, then this is when she stopped sleeping well.
The time when she should have been able to just sleep.
Yes, exactly.
Interesting.
And this is how we started working together and, training her brain, her mindset, setting her mindset so she can sleep again on demand, as she called it, but regular hours, not shifts.
Isn't that funny? Like, there's people who they work better under pressure, under deadline, or they'll procrastinate a project until the last hour, and then they'll cram. And that's what the kind of way she had set her sleep was, to have to be crammed in. And then when she had all the time in the world, she couldn't get it. And you had to go in and help her make that transition.
Yeah. And this is the procrastination, right? She could afford herself not to sleep, or sleep less, or play with the time of her sleep and all of that. So this is quite funny, but it was interesting, and it was really rewarding for her to sleep again on demand, as she called it.
Right. Yeah. Interesting. And that's the thing, Miri, in what we do, is that there are so many situations within our clients where the reason, that it's common to have insomnia, it's common to have anxiety, it's common to have sleep anxiety, which is like you mentioned, a separate thing. But every person's individual reason is unique to them. Even if it's similar, every one of us has a unique root cause. And that's why hypnotherapy.
So I want to just review with you a few possible reasons why we have sleep anxiety.
Okay.
So you mentioned one, situational, right? You were pregnant, you didn't know, and like you didn't know why you can't sleep now, and if you're going to have a good night's sleep, but it carried itself for a while until it didn't. So this is situational. Another thing is childhood trauma that, is triggered by something in adult life. And again,
go ahead.
No, you said because
suppressed emotions don't stay suppressed. It is not a coping mechanism to ignore your trauma.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because it's going to
And
climb up at the middle of the night and go, hi, here I am.
yeah, and even if it was suppressed for a few years, and now it's like, oh, now suddenly you either don't feel safe to be in your bed or to sleep.
Yep.
You have all those emotions coming up, or waking up alive in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
So this is
And
another
that can
thing.
be triggered by a person, it can be triggered by a place, it can be triggered by a smell, a song. Like, you don't know what is going to trigger the emotion to start activating and demanding to be let out. So
And
that's
maybe, and in some cases, you don't even know how it was triggered.
exactly.
Lately, what I get is people coming to me after they had car accidents. And
Okay.
they were in pain for a
Yep.
while. And the pain, sometimes it's gone, sometimes it's still there, but they can't sleep.
Yep.
So pain and car accidents is like what I'm getting now. Chronic pain is, yeah, chronic pain, it's like you have clients coming to you with chronic pain all the time.
Absolutely.
It's hard to find a position when everything is quiet, the pain is elevated. When we are stressed, pain is elevated. So pain is a big thing. We have anxiety before performances. And I'm not only talking about singing or acting, but it can be going to court, having public speaking. Athletes who have big race or big event, they need to
Or
compete.
even kids going back to school.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
There's a social and exposure element when you're in crowds of people. And it can even be attending something that is familiar can still cause that anxiety.
Yeah. Yeah. And working with different athletes, I know that the night before, many of them cannot sleep.
Yes.
Lawyers, when they need to have a court appearance the night before, it's really hard for them to sleep. People who have fear of public speaking, and it's very common, the night before, it's really hard for them to sleep. So
I mean, I know that people who have to set their alarm earlier than their normal time will go a whole night without sleep just because
absolutely.
And so it can be so powerfully debilitating, right?
Yeah, any change of routine, basically.
Yep, you're right.
But then what I get at least is that they are coming here and they are not sure why it happened and why it's not going back to how it used to be before. Yeah. And this is what we don't always know. I mean, we can explore it, but right off the bat, we don't always know why it can't go back. We know it can, but but we need to do something. We need to work together in order to allow it to go back to how it used to be. So there is another thing that I wanted to talk about is the cycle of dread. This is not, it is sleep anxiety, but it's not prior to what happened. It's when you go to bed, and it's more related to insomnia. It's when you go to bed and you can't fall asleep, and you're getting anxious about not being able to fall asleep.
Looking at the clock every 15 minutes.
Or just contemplating, why can't I go to sleep? Why can't, like, the inner dialogue is popping up. Tomorrow I have this and that. Oh, tomorrow I'm not going to be able to function. And then adrenaline is being released. You are even more stressed. You are more awakened, like you can't go to sleep now. And you are more stressed and more adrenaline. And this is the cycle of dread, as we call it. And it's really hard for someone who don't have the tools to get out of this cycle. But it's possible. It's possible.
It is possible. Strategies.
Yeah, and previous episodes about anxiety, practical tools for anxiety, we gave some, and they can be used for that, like breathing, different things that we talked before. We will talk about practical tools for sleep later on, but there are tools that you can use, and you don't need to do much to use them, like breathing. Use your breath to relax. Talk to your body.
Yes.
But talk to your body listening.
Yes.
So
it's calming your mind through distractionary rote. Like it can be mathematically, like numbers, that whole old saying about counting sheep. Using numbers can be very distractionary and sort of you're using your conscious mind and programming your subconscious at the same time. So one of the tricks is to count backwards by threes. But another thing is to select a chant word or phrase. And those are...
Yeah, and this is basically anything that you can do to distract yourself from your destructive thoughts.
Yes.
So what it does, it makes you focus on the task in hand rather than on your thoughts that are unhelpful for you at the moment.
Right. Another one that I like to suggest is for those people who, while trying to sleep, then all of a sudden they'll start thinking about that time in grade 5 that they embarrassed themselves in front of 10 people, and it's such an old thing. And for some reason it just pops up and starts creating the anxiety response, right? The physical and emotional anxiety response to something that is so long past. And to have something more important, to have a success or something that you've done that you feel good about, and to be able to assign a greater importance to the good memories, something that you've done, and just be able to remind yourself what is important. What is important is the times that I've done good things, or the thing that I accomplished today or this week, and shut up that sabotage voice.
And this is why I like the gratitude journal before bedtime.
Yeah.
Where you bring up to the surface some good things that happened to you throughout the day, and you are now focusing, like you create a different mindset around it,
assigning it a greater importance, making it more important than the negative.
And you set the tone to have a good night's sleep, right? Exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, it's like if you put it on a scale of what you are going to allow in your life, and you put it on a scale and you let the positivity outweigh the negativity.
Yeah. And just before we close this one, I want to say about the nervous system. We have two different systems in play. One is the sympathetic nervous system. The other one is the parasympathetic nervous system. Sympathetic nervous system is the is the fight or flight or freeze. The parasympathetic represents the rest and digest. The thing is that most of us in the Western culture, and maybe not only in the Western culture, but we are talking about the Western culture, we don't have a healthy balance between these two systems.
Right.
We are more tend towards the fight, flight, or freeze most of the time, while we are not activating enough the rest and digest system. Once we learn how to create a healthy balance between those two systems, this is when we can allow ourselves to relax when we need to relax, because it's not foreign, it's more familiar to us.
Right.
And it allows us to sleep for longer, to fall asleep faster and to sleep for longer.
Letting those sleep cycles.
Yeah. And whereas if there is not like if the balance is not there and the rest, and the fight or flight or freeze is taking a prominent position, then what happens? Yes, you can fall asleep, but most likely that you will wake up few hours after with a very wired nervous system, because there is no more sleep pressure to keep you asleep. So you fall asleep because of a chemical in your body.
Yeah.
One of them called adenosine that creates sleep pressure, allows you to fall asleep. But then if there is no healthy balance between these two systems, then the adenosine is being washed out of the system, and the nervous system is saying, oh, I'm here, I'm ready to go.
Right.
In the night. So creating balance between those two systems,
the parasympathetic and the sympathetic.
Yeah, it's essential to have good sleep, good life as well, of course, but good sleep and reduce anxiety.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
So thank you so much again for staying with us and listening to our talk about sleep anxiety. If it was interesting, or if it tickled your interest in any way, please subscribe to our channel and come back for more discussions. We'll be happy to answer any of your hypnotic questions. And until next time, from Neota and Miri. Bye-bye.